Hi, welcome to Right to Top. I'm Adam. In today's video, I want to give you 6 idioms that you can use in your essays for the IELTS and or TOEFL, okay? Now, these idioms come from the world of education, from academics, but they can be applied to other situations as well, business, government, etc. So the 6 idioms we're going to look at are school of thought, old school or new school, make the grade or make the cut, above average, below average, ivory tower. Mostly we use it with somebody who lives in an ivory tower, and to learn something the hard way. Okay, so they're very basic. You can use these in many situations, but I'm going to give you some examples of how to use them. But before I do that, I want to address one particular question that many people ask me in the comment section and students as well. Should I use idioms in my essay? So my teacher told me that idioms are too informal and they shouldn't be used in an academic essay. You can and should use idiomatic language in your writing. Okay, let's look. So I went to the IELTS and the TOEFL websites, IELTS.org, TOEFL.org, and I got the publicly available scoring rubric for the writing section, where they show you basically what they're looking for the different bands. So I took one piece from the lexical resource. This is how they score your lexical resource, basically your vocabulary score. And this is what they want for a band 7 score, okay? And the thing you want to pay attention to is the second point there. Uses less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocation. Lexical items. What are lexical items? They are words, they are expressions, they are idioms, they are phrasal verbs, they are all these things that are basically words. Lexical basically means words, right? With some awareness of style. So basically, they want you to add a little bit of style, a little bit of sophistication to your writing, and idioms are one way to do that. And collocation means making sure that the words are put properly together, that certain words go together and they're put in the correct order. In other words, if you're going to use an idiom or an expression or a phrasal verb, make sure that you're using it correctly. If you have half of an idiom and half of something else, then you're not using it correctly. If you're not 100% sure how to use the idiom, don't use it. Okay, that's one point. A second point is that some idioms are too casual or too slangy. Those idioms don't use. But a lot of the idioms that you will study, that you should study, can and should be used in your writing, okay? Now, if you're thinking about the TOEFL, same idea. So here's the publicly available scoring rubric. This is for the score of 4, for the lexical, for basically everything but what they're looking for. Look at the third point. Look at the last point. Displays facility in the use of language, basically grammar, syntactic variety and range of vocabulary. Make sure you have sentence range, sentence variety, vocabulary variety. Though it will probably have occasional noticeable minor errors in structure, word form, or use of idiomatic language that doesn't interfere. So they do expect idiomatic language. They do expect idioms and expressions as long as they're appropriate for the context and as long as they are used correctly. So with that in mind, here are 6 that you can use. We're going to start with a school of thought. So when we talk about a school of thought, we're basically talking about a viewpoint or an opinion or etc. that some people subscribe to. Okay, so people subscribe to a view, and there's a lot of people who subscribe to it, and then therefore this is a school of thought. Okay, now where does this come from? Originally you had like Plato had his school and he concentrated on metaphysics. Then you had Aristotle and he had his school and his students, and he viewed the world from a scientific perspective. So you have this school of thought and that school of thought, different approaches to looking at something. So basically that's how we use it today, to talk about different viewpoints. You can talk about school of thought about how to educate children, a school of thought about how to control taxes, or what the role of government is. So any topic can have schools of thought, can have basically a public and a very commonly held opinion by a group of people, and then another school of thought, a different viewpoint from that other people hold on to. So here's an example where I used it in an introduction to an essay, okay? There is a growing debate as to the role of government and media supervision. One school of thought suggests that authorities have an obligation to protect a nation's citizens by banning harmful materials from appearing in the media, be it television, radio, or on the internet. Another view, so I'm not using school of thought again, I'm just saying another view. Now the word another tells you that I've already presented one view. Here is another view. Another view, another school of thought. Now in the first, when I used it the first time, one school of thought suggests. You can also say some people think. That's fine. You can use some people think, and most people write that. But if you want to have a little bit of sophistication, if you want to get your score up and use a little bit more complex writing, use idioms. That's one way to do that, right? One school of thought suggests this. Another view is that. You can use both of these, okay? So that's one. Old school, new school. If something or someone is old school, it is old-fashioned. If something is new school, it's the modern way. So an old-fashioned way of doing things, an old-fashioned way of thinking about things, an old-fashioned way of approaching a certain topic or situation. Old school parents think that a college degree is the only way to get ahead in life. So these people are from a different generation. When they grew up, they were told, get a degree, get a degree, get a degree. If you want to have a good job and a good life, you need a college degree. But these days, that's considered old school thinking. You have a lot of successful people in the world who didn't graduate from university, but went on to have very successful careers in business and politics, etc. Notice that I have old school with a hyphen. If you're using it as an adjective before a noun, put a hyphen. If you're using it after a noun as its own idea, no hyphen. Today, many parents' approach to education is considered new school, whereby their children are encouraged to try different activities until they find something they are passionate about, regardless of traditional job offerings. So old school thinking, get a degree. New school thinking, find something you love, okay? Now, considered new school, after the fact, after the noun, education, and that's why there's no hyphen in it. Old-fashioned, modern, basically that's what these mean. Make the grade or make the cut. Now, grade comes from basically comes from school, from education. Cut comes from other situations. You can think about butchers. Certain meat makes the cut. It's like a cut of meat, so it's a good quality. If it doesn't make the cut, it's not good quality. So make the grade or make the cut means perform to a certain standard. If you don't make the grade, means you're below the acceptable minimum, and you're not going to get what it is you're going after. Not all students can go to an Ivy League school. Those who do not make the grade, means they didn't have good enough grades to go to Ivy League, often go to public colleges or to vocational schools. So if they didn't make the grade, means they didn't get good enough scores to get accepted to an Ivy League, or their application wasn't good enough for the Ivy League schools. But remember, it doesn't have to be about school. With so many companies offering similar services, those that don't make the cut or the grade, those that don't make the grade in terms of quality and price, often find themselves out of business quickly. So you have so much competition. If your product or service doesn't make the grade, means it's not good enough to compete, you're going to go out of business. So that's basically what it means. Make sure you use it. It doesn't have to be about education. None of these are limited to education, even though that's where they come from. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Now, when we talk about something being below average or above average, so average means the middle of the pack, basically. You have students getting 80s, you have students getting 70s, the average, 80s and 60s, the average is in the 70s, right? If you're above average, means you've done well. If you're below average, you've done poorly, right? So essentially, it means above average means it's good, below average means it's bad. Not very bad, not very good, but better than average, lower than average, less than average. So if we're talking about grades, having above average grades, so again, we're talking about a classroom, 30 students, they had a test, some got 90s, some got 50s, some got 80s, etc. There's an average score for the class. Those who have above average grades can go on to college, but having above average grades used to be sufficient to secure acceptance to university. Though these days it is merely one aspect of a student's application and a minimal one at that. Those whose grades are well below average have little chance for success in today's competitive market. So in the past, if you had above average grades, yeah, you got into university, no problem. Today, that's not enough. You can have above average grades, but you don't have extracurricular activities, you don't have volunteer experience, you didn't really do much of anything except get those above average grades. You're probably not going to get into school. There's too much competition. There are people with better grades than you, or even same grades, that are still above average, but they have all these extra things as well. Now, notice also that I can say well below average. I can't say very below average or very above average. We don't use the adverb very. We use the adverb well to show emphasis or qualify the how much above average, how much below average. Now, again, it doesn't have to be about school. Actors whose movies gross little are often mistakenly considered below average performers, though an individual's on-screen performance can hardly be quantified by a marketing team's failure. Basically means, what this sentence means is that just because an actor was in a movie and this movie didn't make a lot of money, it didn't gross a lot of money, it doesn't mean that the actor did a bad job. It doesn't mean that the actor's performance was below average. It could just be that the marketing team didn't promote the movie well enough. So you can't quantify the actor's performance with the movie's performance. Okay. It could be a very above average performance, but a below average return at the box office in terms of money. Live in an ivory tower. So an ivory tower, and ivory, basically, if you think about elephants, their tusks, that material is ivory. So an ivory tower is like very beautiful, very rich, very detached from reality. That's basically what this means. If you live in an ivory tower, you're very high above the average person. You're a little bit protected. You're in a bit of a luxury world. You don't understand what's going on with the man in the street or the woman in the street. So you're unaware of the common person's needs and troubles and everyday reality, basically. Academics, especially older ones, so academics, people who work in university or in schools, are often seen as living in ivory towers, reading and writing books that do not apply to most people's lives. So they're up there, they don't know what's going on in the world. The fact is, however, that many of these scholars' thoughts form the basis of a nation's governing policies. So the problem with the fact that they're living in an ivory tower and they are detached from reality, what they think, the research that they do, the thoughts that they come up with, the books that they write, a lot of the people in government read these books and create policies for the whole nation, including the people on the street. Okay? Recent developments in world politics reflect the average person's distrust of politicians' ivory tower approach to governance. So the people in the street, like everyday workers and farmers and whatever, people who are just everyday people, they look at politicians and they think these politicians are living in an ivory tower. They're rich, they're talking with other rich people, they have power. They don't know what's going on with the man in the street. So they don't trust these people, and recent political events around the world are a testament to that. Basically, they show that that is the reality of things. Okay. Learn something the hard way. So if you learn something the hard way, you're learning it through a difficult experience. You make mistakes, and that's how you learn. Or you have an opportunity to learn something, like somebody can teach you how to do it, but you don't want to learn this way. You want to experience the situation. Even if you make a mistake, even if you get hurt, even if you get something bad happens to you, you're going to learn from it. And some people just only learn that way. They can't learn from people who have already had this experience. So some children refuse to listen to the advice of the adults around them and seem bent on learning the facts of life the hard way. While this can be costly and even dangerous, some people do develop certain skills and attributes thereby. For example, so what this little passage is saying, that some young people are very stubborn, it happens, and adults are trying to teach them the way to go. You should go study, you should do this, you should do that, because that's the best way for you. But some of these people, they say, no, I'm going to go find out by myself how life works. And yes, they will fall on their faces and they will get hurt, and it could be dangerous and it could be very costly. But some people, because they learned the hard way, they will develop certain skills and they will develop certain attributes. For example, they will understand exactly why not to do something because they learned the hard way that it's not a good way to do it, right? So it's the education is much deeper, you can say. And then I would give examples of this. Unfortunately, many people only learn the hard way that the internet is public property and that it never forgets. Take any politician as an illustration. So some people, they go on the internet, they put things on Facebook or on other social media, and only a few years later do they understand that once you put something on the internet, it's there for the whole world to see and it never goes away. Okay? So learning the hard way means, like, let's say if we're talking about politicians, a few years later they run for governor, they run for president, and then somebody says, oh, 5 years ago you said this in a tweet somewhere. So then they understand, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Too late. So they learn the hard way. They learn because of a bad experience that is about to happen to them. Okay, that's it. 6 idiomatic expressions for you. Use them correctly. If you're not 100% sure how to use them, don't use them, okay? But study the meanings, study the context that these idioms can go by. I'll give you an example. Do not write in your essay that somebody flunked out of school. Flunk out is slang. It's an idiom. It's a phrasal verb idiom, but it's too slang, too casual. You don't want to be using this expression in a formal academic essay. Learn idioms, learn which ones are acceptable, learn the context, learn the complete phrase, and use them, but use them correctly. Okay? And that's it. If you have any questions about this, please ask below in the YouTube comment section. If you like the video, please give me a like. If you really liked it, please subscribe to my channel and come back for more videos on writing, grammar, vocab, test tips, and lots more. See you again soon. Bye-bye.